Nowhere near Jersey. I fooled you all. All right, guys. We're also live. We're live. We're live. Hello, people, ladies and gentlemen, people of all heights and hair colors. If you have hair, you could have alopecia areata and not have any hair, and they look like the president. I'm not going to get political today. Not at all. Not political. I'm not going to be political at all. At all. The president is the Antichrist. But you didn't hear that from me. You know what's funny? Here's a funny thing that I always think is funny. Listen, guess what, guys? I got a fever. I got a fever. Only the people watching the replay will see this much of the show. And I will have remodulated my voice level so that it is not distorting anymore. You're welcome. You're welcome. I could tell that with my eyes. I could see it. You know what's funny? I love when people go like this. They say this. They go, I always tell people, you didn't hear this from me. I'm not one to spread rumors. I always tell people, I'm not one to spread rumors. Wait a minute. So you always tell people that you're not one to spread rumors, and then you spread a rumor. That's hilarious. I find that ironic. That is actual ironic. Hey, Kelsey, it's just me and you here, I think. Just me and you. But I record these and they go on my Instagram for 24 hours, and they stay up on my YouTube channel forever. And in record contracts, they call that in perpetuity. You don't want to see that in your record contract, ladies and gentlemen. If you see the words in perpetuity in your record contract, tear it up. Throw it away. Oh, I forgot my water. I'm just have to drink coffee this whole hour. If I collapse, don't call the ambulance. Call Starbucks. I'm just going to keep talking at you, Kelsey, Alabama. I was talking about other states. You're an entire state. You're the state of Alabama, I imagine. It's your last name. It's your namesake. Of course you are. Everybody is what their name is. That's how it used to be anyway. So if your name is Doolittle, sorry there. That's what they thought of you back in the day. Back in ancient times. Today, people, friends, family, complete and utter strangers, to be frank. People watching this now in the future, probably moments in the future from now, is when you're going to be hearing me say what I just said. Moments in the future from now. If you think about it, it's really going to mess your brain up. So stop thinking about it and talk about movies. We're talking about movies today. We're talking about movies every day, pretty much, actually. Today, specifically, we're talking about monumental mess-ups and retcons. If you don't know what a retcon is when they just decide something didn't happen in the past. When they do like a sequel or something, they go, you know what, we're just going to ignore that whole sequel and start over again. For instance, Superman's 3 and 4, the movies, are retconned, the originals. There's Superman the movie, Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. They took Superman 3 and 4 and then just took them out the mix and came back with Superman Returns in 2006 and said it's a direct sequel of Superman 2. Because Superman, the movie, and Superman 2 were filmed concurrently by Richard Donner. But then they fired Richard Donner halfway through the process and hired Richard Linklater, who Linklater directed and retconned a lot of Superman stuff in Superman 2. I don't know if you guys remember ever seeing that movie, but the Superman had a lot of stupid powers in that movie that did not exist. So this is kind of a double retcon, actually. Superman 2, if you remember, had Zod and all the bad guys from Krypton, and Superman fought them. This is 1980, ladies and gentlemen. Of course you remember. And Superman had like things shooting out of his eyes, and he could like move things with his finger. And it was all Richard Linklater. Linklater decided that he was going to put all that stuff in the movie. Is it Richard Linklater? I'm pretty sure. If it's not, I'll see the comments correcting me. Thank you. I appreciate it in advance. Richard Linklater changed the lore of Superman. Because he just thought, maybe we need to give him some more powers, even though he's been in the comic books forever with consistent powers, even though Superman's powers have changed over the course of the last 70 years or so. But Hey, Tatiana Wilkinson, thank you for joining us. Hey. We're talking today about monumental mess ups and retcons in film history. And I was just talking about how Superman 2 was taken over by another director and he changed all of Superman's power cut of Superman 2 and then put in a lot of stuff that he had shot for screen tests and also took out all of the stuff Richard Linklater did. So there is a version of Superman 2 that Richard Donner, it was a lot closer to what he wanted to direct. Thank you guys for joining me. Hello. Welcome. I think we have a very busy chat room today. This is awesome. Everybody, what's your favorite mess up in movies? There's so many film flubs. And what I mean by that is like when you're watching a movie and you go, wait a minute. It could be like a plot hole. It could be a retcon. Just any kind of mess up where you just doesn't make any sense anymore. And you're wondering, how the hell did this get past all of these people? How the heck did people write this, shoot this, edit it, and then release it to film, yet they'd never even noticed that, say, like Chewbacca here on my shirt. Chewbacca just gets passed by in Star Wars Episode 7 after his best friend gets murdered. Leia, who the closest people to Han Solo were Chewbacca and Princess Leia, or General Leia. And you know what? She just walks right on past him and just doesn't even give him a hug or like commiserate with him. And you're like, wait a minute, that's a freaking missed opportunity. That is a Craigslist missed connection right there. What's up, Jimmy James Cordova? We're talking about movie failures. Actually, we're not. These aren't failures. They've made it to the big screen, and that's actually a big success. If you think about it, don't think about it too much. That's my motto. Don't think about it too much. Today on Aristotle Full Throttle, we do what we do every day, and we answer the question. You ever watch a movie? Hey, Natasha. Thank you for joining us. I like the idea that a lot of people don't like Alien 3. Do you guys remember Aliens and Alien 3? Alien 3 was the first feature film directed by David Fincher, who went on to direct Seven and Fight Club and Gone Girl and The Social Network and a lot of good movies. The Game. That's how he got in the game, was on Alien 3. And he had a lot of struggles with the movie studio when he was making that movie. And they were like, we don't, David Fincher, you just direct Madonna videos. How are we going to trust you with the Alien franchise? He's like, just trust me, bro. It's going to be cool. It's going to be dark. It's going to be dark because I'm David Fincher. The movie studio executives were like, we don't even know David Fincher yet. But David Fincher is quite the talented director. If you notice, all of his movies have kind of this, I want to say a neutral ending, but I don't know if his movies ever have good or bad win in the end. They just sort of stalemate in the end, and I think that's pretty cool. I should actually watch a couple more David Fincher movies. I'm a fan of his, it turns out. But he directed Alien 3, and a lot of people have problems with that movie. I still like Alien 3. And I'll tell you why. It creates a mood that really is a mood of hopelessness, and that's a pretty challenging thing to achieve in a film. Like, the whole movie just feels so dire and hopeless, and it's a distinct feeling that I get from watching that movie. And what is art? What is filmmaking, if not evocative of thoughts and or feelings? This is what we should be thinking about, in my opinion. Guys, is there a massive error in movies that you've noticed watching a movie? A plot hole, a retcon? For instance, I'm talking about Alien 3, and you know what they were going to do? Neil Blomkamp, I don't know how to say his name, it's very difficult. He is from South Africa. Also, he directed Sigourney Weaver in a movie a few years ago and worked with Sigourney Weaver on some concept art and pitched it to her. And he's like, listen, let me pitch to you an idea for an alien movie that takes place right after Aliens instead of Alien 3. Instead of going down the route of, spoiler alert, Ripley she dies in Alien 3. And he's like, well, what if... And also, here's a big thing that people do not like Alien 3 for. At the end of Aliens, there are survivors. And the beginning of Alien 3, everybody dies off screen. So no, except for Ripley. And people are like, wait a minute. So we watched the whole movie Aliens and felt like there was an actual victory, and only to find out that moments later, everybody just died to death in the crash on the prisoner planet where everything feels hopeless for the next 2.5 hours. Yes, I liked it. I didn't like it. I didn't love it. I gotta be honest. I did not like that Newt died, that Michael Biehn died. Michael Biehn is pretty phenomenal because he always plays an alien, or not an alien. He always plays a space marine or a type of marine. He was a Navy SEAL in Navy SEALs. He was a future Marine in Terminator. He was a space marine in Aliens. You name it. He was in The Abyss. Hey, Ange N.O., thank you for commenting. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. If you are on YouTube right now, definitely like the video right away. Guys, when I get to 10,000 subscribers, don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. Actually, tell everybody. I'm going to give away a PS5. It is upgraded. My giveaway has upgraded itself because we've not reached 10,000 subscribers yet. Yet. And I say yet because I'm hopeful. I'm not like Alien 3. I'm hopeful, guys. 10,000 subscribers. I'm going to give it away. Subscribe to YouTube. Like the videos. Share them. Comment. What qualifies you to win the PS4, by the way, is comments. So if you comment on my videos, like and comment, that is how I could tally up who's leaving the most comments, who's been the most engaging, who is, I'd say, the most deserved of being the Aristotle Full Throttle #1 fan, winning the PS15 by the time we get to it. And the Karate Kid referee tells no kicks to the face, but Daniel wins by a kick to the face. You just nailed it, and Tatiana, that is ridiculously. You know what? I actually did notice that sort of subconsciously as a kid, but I was like, well, he disqualified the other guy, but he would have disqualified himself and not won that trophy, and not gone straight outside, and then gotten attacked in the beginning of Karate Kid 2 or whatever it was. I like how Daniel's son at the end of Karate Kid is so triumphant, but again, moments later is the beginning of Karate Kid 2, and he's walking outside, and he just goes back to being kind of like a twerp. Fun fact, Daniel's son and I, Ralph Macchio, I'm not Ralph Macchio, Ralph Macchio and myself are from the same town. We grew up in the same town. Ralph Macchio. It's funny that his name is Macchio. That's macchio, like macchiato. What's up, Dirksen? How are you? We were just talking about the Karate Kid, because there's a fatal flaw in that movie, even though we all still love it. Today we're talking specifically about flaws in movies, retcons in movies, things that people tried to make you forget about because they just wanted to rewrite history. And but yeah, that is a massive plot hole in Karate Kid. The Karate Kid, the referee tells everybody, lays down the rules at the beginning of the tournament. Toward the end of the movie, he says, no kicks to the face. How does Daniel-san win? Kicks him in the face. But to be fair, there was no sweep kicks allowed either. And Johnny swept the leg. Fair is fair. That's what I say. Titanic, Jack definitely would have fit on the door. Don't they understand buoyancy? Tatiana brings that up. That is an astute observation. I would say that they could have gotten at least 3 people on that door. But Jack, she's like, I'm cold, Jack. I'm kind of tired of holding your hand. And, frankly, once I get back to land, life's going to go back to normal. And I'm rich, Jack. Sorry. Jimmy James Cordova on Instagram Live says, any race movie that has 2 guys running for the finish line when you can't win without a car even. Oh, yeah. That was... I think you're talking about Talladega Nights. And Talladega Nights, listen, Jimmy James, we gotta just forgive Talladega Nights because there's a lot of stuff that happens in that movie that makes no sense. However, I do agree that I was watching that movie going, they're running for the finish line after their cars crashed, and they're still trying to gauge who wins. Uh, yeah, I'm kind of on both sides of that. I thought it was funny, but I did feel a little bit of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, ladies and gentlemen, that is when you feel something, but you think perhaps the opposite think. They call things thoughts. So sometimes that happens in life, and you go, why do I feel this way, but I think the other way? And what that causes us is a dissonance or discomfort. And eventually, we have to try to figure out our feelings and maybe perhaps why our thoughts conflict with our feelings about certain things. And it's nice to have a cognitive resonance in which we can be in line with our values. You're welcome. Hey, Crazy 1373. I was just giving a psych lesson, but also talking about Titanic and why Jack could not have survived. Why didn't he survive? He should have. He should have just gotten on the door. He should have been like, move over, Rose. There's room enough there for the two of us. I think it's funny how some things get retconned, some people get recast. Maybe recasting was another one. Recast for the better, recast for the worst. What do you guys think about this? Iron Man. You had Terrence Howard as Randy Rhodes. It was Rhodey in the first one. And I thought Terrence Howard and Robert Downey Jr. had an incredible chemistry in that movie. However, apparently Terrence Howard, how he himself has resolved like basically a diagram of I'm trying to remember what he said because it didn't make any sense, so I can't like reconceptualize what he said, but the words were something about the platonic solids and that he could realign the universe and reconstruct the universe without using gravity. And I was like, all right, Terrence Howard, I see why they recast you with Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle. He seems like a stable dude. He seems like a guy you bring in to do a great job. Terrence Howard seems like a guy that you bring in to maybe Howard free. That whole show, though, by the way, Terrence Howard's on the Empire show. I watched the first 2 seasons. You know what? I liked it. I liked that show, Empire. It is bad, but I like it. I got to catch up. And that show has turned out some crazy people. Like, I don't know if you've watched the latest Dave Chappelle, but Juicy Smollett, that guy, Juicy Sommelier or whatever. That dude. Here's another one from Tatiana. Why didn't Marty's parents in Back to the Future think it was off that their adult son looks just like the guy who was the reason they met? You know what, Tatiana? That never bothered me. That never bothered me, because how many people from high school that you met maybe like for a little bit, you met, like Marty McFly only went back in the future. He only went back to 1955 for about a week. So the entire span of the Back to the Future movies, all 3 movies, is 2 weeks, I think. 2 weeks? 2 weeks? What movie was I just quoting, guys? 2 weeks. First one to get it gets a high five. Marty McFly only goes back in the future to 1955 for a week. And has there ever been anybody that visited your high school for a week that maybe, I don't know, you made out with once in a car and then had to like beat up a bully? That all happens. But if there was somebody that you knew for 1 week in high school, would you remember their face without any photographic evidence or anything to remind you in 30 years? I think, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think maybe George McFly would be like, hey, this kid looks a lot like that guy we met in high school. But I guess you're right, you know. Marty would have started looking like Marty at what? Maybe George McFly would have been looking at the kid and been like, hey, what, did you meet some guy in high school? I don't know. I think it's fine. I like it for the whimsicalness. My only problem, my only massive mess up for Back to the Future. Back to the Future is a perfect movie, and don't say it's any different. If you say Back to the Future is any different, if you say Back to the Future is not a perfect movie, I'll be like, okay. Back to the Future to me is a perfect movie, except for the fact that he says, Doc Brown says 1.21 what? 1.21 what? 1.21 gigawatts. And now it is common parlance to say like gigabyte, megabyte, terabyte. Back then it wasn't. So there was nobody on set going, hey, Mr. Christopher Lloyd. I don't blame Christopher Lloyd because it's not his fault he didn't know how to pronounce that word. It is someone on set. It's the writer. It's the director. Somebody should have been like, hey, guy, it is gigawatt. 1.21 gigawatts. 21? All right. 20, Tatiana, touche. She remembers everybody from her high school. I couldn't. I don't think I could. Maybe I could. Gigawatts, guys. Back to the Future is an absolutely perfect movie. Still, we should actually all be saying gigawatt, to be honest. I think that that's what should have happened. We should have just all ended up saying gigawatt. That's the official term. How do we know? Back to the Future. Back to the Future taught us this. Back to the Future retconned one of the actors. They replaced Jennifer with Elizabeth Shue in the second movie. That's a perfect example of a retcon or a redo. They reshot the entirety of the end of Back to the Future for the beginning of Back to the Future 2, which I always found a little bit striking. A little bit odd that they had to literally redo every shot and every beat and sort of miss the comedy and the magic of the original. It's kind of a stale remake. So the beginning of Back to the Future 2, because they recast a character in order for the continuity to in your brain to stick around, they had to redo it. They had to reshoot it. I don't know why they just didn't reshoot certain. I mean, I guess they had to do the whole thing because they were pretty integral to the scene. Here's a fun thing about Back to the Future 2, guys, and 3. Crispin Glover is not in the sequels. I don't know if I just blew your mind there, but Crispin Glover is not in Back to the Future 2, and he is not in Back to the Future 3. What they did was, what had happened was, Crispin Glover refused to come back for the sequels. What a curmudgeon. What a stick in the mud. They were like, this is the best movie ever. You want to do another one? He's like, I don't know. Nah. Guys, if you make the best movie ever, don't be the person that's like, I don't want to do another one. Because it's like, clearly, I don't know, I guess there's different people in the world. I would say, that was fun. Everyone liked it. Let's do it again. I don't know, that's just me. Be a team player. Listen to Slayer. Do all those things. Crispin Glover is not in Back to the Future 2, even though he is in Back to the Future 2, because they used footage of him from Back to the Future 1, because that was what it was called. Back to the Future 1, Back in the Future. Crispin Glover was like, I ain't coming back for no sequel. And they said, fine, we're just going to use your video from the first movie, and then we're going to splice it into the movie so that it looks like you're in the movie. Also, there's another actor playing George McFly, the old version of George McFly. If you remember, he was inverted on that floaty thing in 2015 in the future. He was inverted. That actor is not Crispin Glover. It's another actor who, get this, they made prosthetics for his face that were of Crispin Glover's face, because Crispin Glover had to do a face mold in order to get the old makeup in the original Back to the Future. So they had a life cast of Crispin Glover's face that they put on another actor so that he looks like Crispin Glover. And you could look all this up. It's all true. It's crazy because an actor's job, an actor's moneymaker is their face, is their image. So when you're on film as an actor, that is what you have that sets you apart initially from any other actor. It's your likeness, it's your face, it's what you make your money with. And Crispin Glover changed Hollywood history. He changed how Hollywood does things because Crispin Glover sued Robert Zemeckis, the creator, the producer, and Steven Spielberg and Universal Pictures. He sued them and he said, hey guys, I said I didn't want to be in the sequels, but you put me in the sequels anyway. And you didn't pay me. And he has a point. He actually changed how we do things in Hollywood. If there's so much even a picture of you in a movie, they have to give you a base SAG rate as appearing in that movie. Since then, because Crispin Glover sued the pants off of Universal after they used his likeness and image in the sequels of Back to the Future. He won that case and changed Hollywood, and he's actually, quite frankly, still grumpy about it. You watch interviews with him as recent as a few years ago, and he's like, oh man, that really got under my skin. My cat can eat a whole watermelon. He's a weird guy, but he actually changed history for movies anyway. Pretty cool, I think. I think it's actually for the better. Now people can't just use stock footage of you and then put it in your movie, because guess what? You're technically in that movie, performing in that movie if they use stock footage of you. What's the difference if they shot it or someone else shot it at a different time? There's no difference. There's no difference. So I imagine, I was talking about Superman Returns earlier, it has Marlon Brando reprising his role as Jor-El, which he did not reprise in Superman 2, by the way. Interestingly enough, it's kind of bizarre. It might have been, Marlon Brando refused to come back for the second Superman, so they had to redo his part with making, like, I don't know if you guys know the Superman movies all that well, but Marlon Brando plays like the holographic image of Superman's father. So Superman goes to commune with him in the Fortress of Solitude in the North Pole. But because Marlon Brando did not negotiate his contract for the second or third movie, I forget which one it was, then they switched it just arbitrarily to Superman communing with the actor who played his mother, because Marlon Brando did not want to play ball, which is fine. It's there to each their own. Yeah. Tatiana does remember everybody that she has kissed in the backseat of her car. Fair enough. Moral of the story, don't let them take a mold of your face. Don't do it. Smash the mold. Break the mold. Or break your face. One or the other. It's your only choice. Or, just say, sure, I'll be in it. But actually, that is a good moral of the story. I'd say, in addition, ladies and gentlemen, you can make a song, and you could record a song, and it could take a few days, and then, you mix and master it, and then that song exists forever. It exists in perpetuity, bringing it back to the beginning of the conversation. The song, every time it's played on the radio, it's being performed, because music is just a transient art form. It just exists in the moment. So every time it's performed, every time it's played, that is your performance, again, being played for somebody. And same thing with TV shows and reruns and all that. You can't just say, like, I got paid to show up on the day and then get filmed, and then the network can show your TV show over and over and over again, because guess what? Every time they show the show, they're using your performance, and you're performing again for them. And so they should pay you for that. And they do, generally speaking. But it's become less and less. Hey, Karen. Hey, Crazy One. Hey, Eric does sanctions. Auctions. Eric does auctions. Not Eric do sanctions. Man, if you did sanctions, that'd be very, I don't know, presidential. So today we're talking about movie mess-ups, giant plot holes, errors in film history, movies when you watch them be like, hey, wait, wasn't that guy, whatever happened to Jerry? Why did they just forget about Jerry by the end of this movie? Like the first season of Stranger Things. What was her name? Betty? Barb. She died, and we all forgot about her. That was the end. It was like, okay, Barb's dead, now what? All of her friends nobody was curious as to where Barb went. And then, of course, the second season, they were like, remember Barb? Oh, yeah, let's maybe get sad for about half an episode about Barb and then go back to not caring about Barb. Good golly. Bro, man, what's up? So, guys, any specific things in a movie where you, like, noticed it right away, where you go, that's different, that's weird, or there's, like, a film flub and say, here's another example. The movie, directed by, like, the greatest director of movies, maybe one of them, Frank Capra. He directed a movie called It's a Wonderful Life. And he's very meticulous about his movies. Everything looks very perfect, and, you know, every shot is thought out. There's a scene, though, where George Bailey, played by Jimmy Stewart, has got, like, a wreath on his arm, and then the wreath is around his neck when they cut back to him, and then it's back around his arm when they cut back to him again. Stuff like that I always kind of notice. Continuity errors. You know, it's the script supervisor's job on a movie set. Generally speaking, it's mainly the actor's job to make sure that they know what they're doing and which hand they're holding their coffee cup in for every shot. It's really the actor's job. However, the script supervisor will remind the actor. The script supervisor will be... I'm just going to say, script supervisor is the hardest job on set. If you are a script supervisor, you are a boss. Every time I meet a script supervisor, I tell them, I say, hey, you have... Usually they're just kind of humble about it, and they're like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of like my thing. That's what I like to do. And then I'm like, no. What you do is the hardest and probably the most important thing to do on set, because if things don't match from shot to shot, you got to toss it all out, or you got to work it around it, or cut around it, or it becomes a headache in the editing room. So the script supervisor is always like, so when you said the word cabinet, you had the coffee cup in your left hand. So just remember to have it in your left hand, turned in such an angle. And they will remind you. And they will make sure that things are like the same way. That your lapel was peeled back in that last shot. You need to put it back in that same position. So stuff like that, it just blows my mind how attentive they are to certain details like this. It is the toughest job in the world. Script supervisor. Yeah, continuity errors can be very distracting. My favorite kind of continuity error is when the wig changes. I don't know if you guys... there's so many wigs in these superhero movies. Everybody's wearing a wig or a fake beard, like me. And everybody... Captain America's hair is not Captain America's hair. That beard is not his beard. So in Endgame... And these movies are shot over the course of a year and a half, 2 years. They're just shot over a long time. So when actors leave and then come back and they get rescheduled for reshoots, or when the writers are looking in the editing room and saying, oh, you know what? We actually need a scene here that will join these two scenes so that it'll make more sense. The movie will flow better. We can get a little bit of exposition in there and maybe a little bit of action just to glue these two pieces of the movies together. I'd say Hollywood is getting a lot better at that lately. Hollywood, particularly the Marvel movies, everything has to be accounted for. There must be an entire department of people just toiling over making sure every little detail is connected and every Easter egg actually means something. So, in Avengers Infinity War, when there's that shot of Captain America and Black Panther, and they're all on the field getting ready to face down the army of the 6-armed aliens, or the 4-armed aliens. Look at Captain America's beard in that. It's pretty funny because it just looks like it's taped on with Scotch tape, and because it's a big fake beard because they had to do a reshoot, and his beard is just like all over his face. I think it's a funny scene. You think Chris Hemsworth grows his hair that length every movie? No, it's a wig. You think Donald Trump actually has hair? I don't know. I'm just looking outside. Now I'm looking inside. I feel like we're kind of in the home stretch right now, guys. Not like the home stretch, not like once we cross the finish line of this coronavirus isolation situation. Not like once we cross the finish line, everything's going to be good. Because you got to phase back into society. And I want you all to just be cognizant of that. I also wanted to point out that there's a lot of people that were surprised yesterday when they were like, no, but I was wearing a face mask. But so we all hung out. And I'm like, wait, that's not... Dr. Anthony Fauci, the head of the National Institute for Health and whatnot, he's like, this might be a surprise to a lot of people, so brace yourself. The mask wearing is not in lieu of social distancing; it's in addition to. So you got to wear a mask and stay 2 meters or 6 feet apart. You have to do the mask and 6 feet apart. That might be surprising, and I think a lot of people have a false sense of security when they're wearing a mask and think that, well, you know, like a few weeks ago, people were like, well, we had a party, but we were social distancing. You know, it was like a social distance party. You know, it's like we were all hanging out together, but like social distance. And I was like, but you were hanging out together. Yeah, like, but, you know, we kept apart. You know, we were at a party. Problem with all this is the solution is left up to people to handle, and that's why we're all doomed. Speaking of Doctor Doom, I'm wondering about the Fantastic Four movies. When are we going to get a good Fantastic Four movie? Is that a thing that we're ever going to get? Josh Trank directed the last Fantastic Four movie, and it was not fantastic at all. It was bad. It was mostly bad. It was the Badtastic Four. Interesting thing about the Fantastic Four is it's licensed by, I think, 20th Century Fox, and they have to make a Fantastic Four movie no further than 5 or 6 years apart or 7 years apart. They have to make in perpetuity, like part of the terms of the deal, in perpetuity. It keeps coming back, in perpetuity. Part of the deal that Fox made with Marvel when they purchased the intellectual property rights of the Fantastic Four was that they needed to continue making Fantastic Four movies, or else Marvel was going to just take that property back and sell it to someone who wants to make Fantastic Four movies. Because why am I going to sell this to you if you're just going to sit on it? I'm going to sell this to you if you continually make movies, and you have to keep making movies every 5 or 6 years, a Fantastic Four movie, or else I'm going to just take that back and go somewhere else with it. We either both make money, or I'm gonna take my ball and go home. And so Fox agreed to that, and that is why we get a crappy Fantastic Four movie every few years. Because Fox is like, oh no, our rights are gonna run out for this Fantastic Four movie. Let's put one together. Let's just make another one real quick and make a quick buck, and then do this again in 5 years. Let's all get back together again in 5 years. There's even a movie directed by Roger Corman in the 90s about the Fantastic Four, and it's bad. It's got Jay Underwood in it. Jay Underwood is an actor, and he was in a show when I was a kid, in a movie called The Boy Who Could Fly, and he was also in a movie about a robot. He was an android. What was that called? Almost Human. I loved that movie. Almost Human. That movie made me want to do the acting. One of those movies. I hate to notice continuity. Independence Day, the computer was somehow compatible with the alien computers, so they had to send a virus. Yeah, Tatiana. And it was a Mac, too. I don't know. I don't know if it was a Mac or not. But yeah, it seemed weird. Aliens would be using a Mac. It was like a floppy disk. Didn't make any sense. That's Roland Emmerich for you, though. I know I go off on Roland Emmerich because he's a terrible filmmaker. And I will continue to, because he's not a terrible filmmaker. He makes giant movies. It's not easy to do that, but it is easy to fix certain errors like that. So that's a great example. If you make a movie that big, why are you going to do something so dumb? Stop it. Just stop it. I talked about that about Ben Affleck in Armageddon. Ben Affleck is on the commentary track for Armageddon, and he talks about how he mentioned to Michael Bay, oh, right, so why is it easier to train a bunch of oil drillers to become astronauts than it is to train astronauts to drill a hole? Man, Michael Bay needs to, I don't know, I can't get mad at him. He's just Michael Bayin. He's just like, yo, I'm just Michael Bayin up in this piece. That's what I do. I'm Michael Bay all day. Any guys on Instagram have a friggin' thing, a thing that doesn't make any sense, a plot hole, a continuity error, a retcon. They retconned the entire, not the entire Incredible Hulk movie. That was the second movie in the MCU universe. The Incredible Hulk in around, I don't know, was it 2009, 2010? I forget when it was, but it was the movie that came out after Iron Man. It was the Incredible Hulk. And the only thing I think they kept from that was John, that actor. What was his name? Sergeant Slaughter. General he was in charge of the Sokovia Accords. Thunderbolt Ross. General Thunderbolt Ross, who later becomes one version of the Hulk. You ever notice that General Thunderbolt Ross, and there's another Ross, the guy from Black Panther, played by young Bilbo? That guy's name is also Ross. I think it's really funny in movies when characters don't have the same name. You know how in life you will encounter 27 like Kevins? You will encounter 15 Chris's a day in life. However, in movies, they're just like, this is Bob, this is Freddie, this is Sammy, this is George, this is Kevin. And you just go down the line and everybody's got their own name. I guess it's to make it easier, but life's not really like that. Unless it's the movie like Sabrina or something. But unless it's actually integral into the story as to why two characters have the same name, no two characters in movies generally have the same name. And I find that unrealistic. It's hard to suspend my disbelief. What's up? Do not follow me. I'm serious. You are late. We got only about 15 minutes left, but today we're talking about movie errors, continuity errors, retcons, times when movies were like, I didn't like that. We're going to do this again. We're going to redo it. We're going to do it over again. They kind of, I don't know if they retconned Star Trek. I think that J.J. Abrams did a really cool thing with redoing Star Trek in 2009, because what he did, JJ is not all bad. What J.J. Abrams did with Star Trek, you can see there's a Star Trek right here. That's like a Star Trek thing. What J.J. Abrams did is he preserved the entire history of Star Trek. So everything actually happened, but then he loops back and starts in the Prime universe, Star Trek Prime. There's the Star Trek Prime, and then there's the JJ verse. So they both exist. And the old Star Trek is still in the past because we started a new timeline. It's still the future of certain characters like Spock, because he dies in the past, which is, just try to think about that. It's actually the same time travel thought process that the Avengers Endgame does. And I think that that's quite remarkable. I like that. I like that everything that happened in Star Trek actually happened and still happened and is still the past. However, we started over again with a new timeline with Chris Pine and all them. We were talking about Bones yesterday, and Carl Urban and Keith Urban and Carl Rural and Keith Suburb. Carl Urban does an interesting thing with the character of Bones because he recreates the character, but the DeForest Kelley version of the character. So he actually acts like DeForest Kelley acting like Bones. And I thought that was an interesting choice because it kind of gives you the same flavor that you're used to, but he's doing an impression of DeForest Kelley. He's also really good as Judge Dredd. We need to see what happens with Judge Dredd. We need to see a sequel of Judge Dredd, even though it's not likely going to happen. Do not follow me, I'm serious. That's someone's tag, by the way. If anybody's curious, actually, please follow me. Go to AristotleFullThrottle.com. Subscribe there. Like the video. Share the videos. Comment on all of my videos because, you know, it helps out the channel, helps me out. And if you're anything like Jimmy James Cordova out there, you can become a patron to my Patreon, Aristotle Full Throttle on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate it. Every day at noon we talk movies. We just have a fun time. We hang out. You guys are, you know, we're a party. This is like we're in the club now. We're all in a special club called the Throttlers Club. Bring your coffee. Napoleon Dynamite, is there really a plot to that movie? Jimmy James brings up Napoleon Dynamite. Is there a plot to that movie? I don't know. Maybe build her a cake or something. You know what? I think there is a plot to that movie. The plot is gonna go to the prom, and that's it. That's the plot. We gonna go to prom. Who we gonna ask to go to the prom? And then or the dance or whatever it is. My favorite part of that movie is pretty much every part of that movie. One of my favorite parts is when Napoleon calls home from school, which is a very real moment, and he's like, put grandma on the phone, and Ken, he calls his brother Ken, and Ken is standing there with a giant, and there's a continuity error in this scene too, by the way, with a big plate of nachos with cheese on it, and it cuts back to Napoleon Dynamite at school calling home. He's like, put grandma on the phone. And then Ken's like, I'm really busy right now. He's like really busy, and every time they cut back to Ken, the plate of nachos and cheese gets bigger. And he's just standing there. It's so good. It cuts to Napoleon. He's talking. Cuts back to Ken. The plate has doubled in size, and there's more cheese on it, on the nachos. And it's hilarious. I don't know. Go make yourself a dang quesadilla. Yes, thank you for do not follow me. I'm serious. Please follow me. I'm serious. Yahoo Serious. You guys remember that guy? No? I designed my haircut after him. Yahoo Serious was an Australian, still is an Australian, and he was in a movie called Young Einstein, and he wanted us to believe that Einstein was an Australian guy, and when he was young, he was like a Rube Goldberg device making weird Doc Brown type of inventor. And you know what? I liked it. I thought it was funny because in the 80s, everybody was like, Crocodile Dundee, Australia is a place, people. They speak English enough in a way that we can almost barely understand it. And, you know, and it's good for Western culture to put another shrimp on the barbie. Australia, you know, I didn't even know New Zealand was an actual destination until The Lord of the Rings. 2012 Judge Dredd with Carl Urban. Yeah, I like that one better than the Sylvester Stallone one, too. Here's why. In the comic book Judge Dredd, I'm going to call him Dooney. Dooney is do not follow me, I'm serious. Dooney says, I like the 2012 Judge Dredd with Carl Urban more than the one with Sylvester Stallone. Agreed. That's a good choice. Here's why. The cartoon or the comic strip, it's actually a comic strip, Judge Dredd. I don't even believe it's a comic book. It's a comic strip that they've adapted into novels, but it is a European. It's a UK character from the UK, Judge Dredd. dystopian future kind of. He is the law. He is a judge, but he's also a law physically. They've consolidated the process in the future that you can just get pulled over and then pretty much executed on the spot if you're found to be guilty, because he's like the judge, jury, executioner, and cop. And pretty neat. It's pretty economical, efficient justice system, I suppose, and it's all left up to him. Fun thing about this comic strip is Judge Dredd doesn't ever he has not actually he has aged. So in the 70s, when they came out with Judge Dredd and he was about 25 or so, I don't know how old he was, he has aged chronologically every year. So he is in his 70s or something like that now. Judge Dredd in the comic strip ages chronologically per year. So since the comic book started, he has aged every year. So let's see, how old is Judge Dredd? He is 77. Judge Dredd has turned 77 recently. Yeah, because he ages with the comic book, which is kind of pretty interesting. 77 years old, that guy. Still running around shooting people. Also, here's the reason why the Carl Urban one is better than the Sylvester Stallone one. He's always frowning. Judge Dredd. Meh. Dredd. Here's my dread face. Meh. Judge Dredd never takes his helmet off. Has never taken his helmet off. Will not take his helmet off. Doesn't take his helmet off to reveal Sylvester Stallone's face. Or any face. He's never taken his helmet off. And he's aged every year. I think that's interesting. I find that fun. I find that fun. Judge Dredd. Meh. I'm Judge. I wonder if there are other judges who are like have onomatopoeia names. I don't know what Dredd would describe. It's a descriptor. It's a adjective. It's a feeling. I guess it's a noun. It's a thing. Dread. Oh my God, Dooney, I totally agree. The effort to keep that face has got to be immense. It's just doing it like for like a few seconds now. I've got like a pounding headache and cramps in my face. And it actually is proven that if you smile and then put your arms in the air like a victory, this is a universal motion. When people feel happy and triumphant, they put their arms in the air. And they know this because across all cultures, people go arms in the air when they're excited and feel good. So there's no visual cue or behavioral model to pattern off of. They just do it. So if you actually just go like this first, you can retroactively change your mindset and feel a little bit better by smiling and putting your arms in the air for like 20 minutes. I don't know if it's 20 minutes. It could be just like 30 seconds or 2 minutes. But you can do it and it'll actually affect your mood. Small things, little things we learn here every day. I think that's I like to do that sometimes. Just go like, you know what? Yeah. Whoa, that was weird. You yawn and you stretch your arms and you feel happy. That's how you get up in the morning. You get like energized. In Gremlins, if you are not supposed to feed them after midnight and they're from Asia, how did the curse go by the local time? Tatiana, you are knocking it out of the park today. I totally agree. I would always think that. I thought it was funny. How do they know what time it is? Maybe they just got to know what time it is. It's only due to local time. Perhaps it is where the moon is positioned or the sun is positioned on the earth relative to them. How dark it must be. How light it must be. After midnight, you don't know what time midnight is when you're in Alaska or you're in the Scandinavia. You don't know what time midnight is. But they did chew through the wire so that they didn't realize it was after midnight. I thought that was funny. After midnight, they are going to all let it all hang out. After midnight, they're going to chug-a-lug and shout. You guys know what song that is? It's a song. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about the Gremlins thing. Like, what if there's enough moisture in the air? There's enough water in the air because you can't get them wet. But I like that. It seemed like pretty pretty difficult rules to follow. They're like, yeah, this is a fun little gift. It's a cute little thing, but yeah, just don't feed it after midnight, get it wet, or let it see light, because any one of those things will either kill it or kill you. just be careful. Another plot hole in Gremlins, which I found weird. Maybe it's not a plot hole. It's like if Mogwai get wet and give birth to more Mogwai when they get wet, which is kind of adorable because they go and little fur balls pop out. Why is it that when Gremlins get wet, they give birth to more Gremlins in kind of a gross, disgusting, slimy way, but not, I don't know. It just seemed a little incongruous that they can both multiply depending on which version they're in after they have pupated. So there's like two different versions. So why would they have to become a Mogwai to become a Gremlin? But if you're a Gremlin, you could just multiply as Gremlins anyway. Weird, right? You never had to think about that in your life, have you? I did like Gremlins 2 because it was like the Gremlins were let loose in the movie theater. When I saw Gremlins 2 in the movie theater, spoiler alert, there is a part of the movie where the film breaks and melts. And when I was in the theater, people actually thought the film was messing up because it was like, and it freezes and then the frame melts. And I heard someone go, uh-oh, something went wrong. And then, of course, the Gremlins start making finger puppets or shadow puppets because they're Gremlins. They're even messing in a meta way with the film itself that you're watching. You guys have been watching Aristotle Full Throttle every day at noon. We were talking about film continuity problems and errors and retcons today. Tomorrow, perhaps we will talk about, I don't know, rules, movie rules, interesting movie rules that whenever you watch a movie, take note of this. This might ruin movies for you forever. If they ever mention a rule, don't cross the streams. If they ever mention a rule in a movie, particularly early on, wait for them to break that rule. Because movies only introduce rules so that they can break them later. Because they want to create stakes. They want you to go, oh, but we can't do that, but now we have to. And pretty much every movie that introduces a rule early on will do that. I don't break any rules. And I'm introducing that rule right now. Yeah, yes. Why does Spider-Man need web shooters if his spider powers? I disagree with you, Dooney. I think Spider-Man does need web shooters because I like it. It works as a good dramatic device that he's running out of web fluid and has to use his smarts to get out of a situation. I like it as a plot device. Well, I've got 27 seconds left here on Instagram Live. If you want to jump over to YouTube at AristotleFullThrottle.com, I'm going to talk for a couple more minutes, wrap things up. I've been Aristotle Full Throttle, your bro, in the know with the fro on IG. Hang out on YouTube if you're on YouTube right now. We'll talk for a little bit and wrap this up. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Now that they're gone, we could all chug-a-lug and shout. Yes, that screen melting was brilliant, Tatiana. I thought that was really fun. I fell for it. And I thought it was hilarious that they made shadow puppets, and then one of those shadow puppets was, of course, Abraham Lincoln. How come the Gremlins know so much about American history? They've studied up. Gremlins, though, so much fun. I hope they make a Gremlins 3 with Phoebe. What's her name? Phoebe, Kelsey, Johnny, Freddie, Bobby, Karen, Phoebe Cates. I hope they make another movie with that cast, the original cast. Zach Galligan. Who else was in that movie? Gremlins 2 was a great sequel because it was so dumb and such a goofy follow-up and such a different vein and seemed to make sense. It was meta. It was a movie about watching the movie Gremlins. I enjoyed it. Well, thank you guys for joining me today and you can catch the rerun every day. Every day, these are being saved on my YouTube channel, so you can watch them over and over again to your delight. You could have them playing in the background while you do the dishes. You could do all sorts of things. While you're working from home, you could hear me talk and yell about Crispin Glover and how to avoid getting screwed over in your record contract and in movie contracts. And maybe, just maybe, you could lift your arms in the air like this every day for 2 minutes and make yourself feel good and maybe give yourself a hug from me to you. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow at noon. And we're going to talk all about this kind of stuff. Just hang out. Have a good time. I'm Aristotle, full throttle. Your bro in the know with the fro. See you tomorrow.